Welcome back again to You Are Supreme Toys. I wanted to save good old Darth Vader for last because this is, in my opinion, a really good update to a vintage figure style. I feel like this is just what they would have made Darth Vader look like if they had done a second version in the original Star Wars line. And I love him. Darth Vader might be overrated at this point, but you can't have enough Darth Vader figures, in my opinion. He's like Boba Fett and Stormtroopers. They just don't get old. Like the droids, they just don't get old. But this is, he's written down as the Dark Times Darth Vader, which is interesting. I don't really care about that. But I guess you want to have a time period to place him in. Again, a little sticker on the front. I don't really like this photo, but maybe it was the best shot they had from the new show. The immediate difference you can tell is he has a cloth goods cloak. So we're going to just rip him out the package, and I'll compare him to the vintage Darth Vader, and we'll see how it goes. A little bit of camera magic, and he's open. I know it's cheesy, but it's fun. Gotta have some consistency to these videos, right? More delicious, useless paper. You know, if you save enough of these, you might can use them for medicinal needs. Alright, he's got a lightsaber. It is a reddish color. Again, pull down on it to get it out of that bubble. A little bit warped out of the package, but whatever. And let's push him out. Let's push him out. Come on out now. Come on out, package out, Darth Vader. Okay. Now, here he is. I like that head sculpt. It's almost looks like it would be a bootleg Darth Vader head sculpt. I've seen bootleg Darth Vaders with a similar head sculpt like that. I'm glad that they painted the eyes on this one. Because if we pull the original in here, we'll see that they did not paint his eyes. Let's see. How's he look? This is a very thin cape. Very thin material. I'm not sure how I feel about that. And it kind of wraps around the front. Darth Vader's cape doesn't really do that. But I guess you could sort of pull it back and fold it under the shoulder, but then it's just still too bunched up around his neck. I feel like they could have done something different, but it's okay for what it is. It's okay. It does the job. I'm not sure. I don't think it would be easy to pull it off because he's kind of got that big round head. Of course, they painted his breather and his belt. And that's all it looks like they painted on him. So not that many paint applications on this Darth Vader. Let's get the original in here, see a size comparison. They look to be the exact same height, which is a important detail to maintain. I feel like this is an update to the vintage one. There's definitely, it really looks like the original head sculpt, but with just painted eyes. It's hard to believe that that could be the case, but that's what it looks like. It's hard to believe that such a small thing like painting the eyes could make such a different, give it such a different look. Let's compare the arms and the gloves. Very similar. Very similar. The torso, it's hard to compare the torso because of the capes in the way. But the biggest immediate difference is the original Darth Vader has ridges all the way down his suit. And this new one has the cod piece, and the original does not have that cod piece. Other than that, everything is painted pretty much the same. The belt on the newer one is a lot more detailed and a lot more filled out. And so is the breather. The breather on the vintage one is a little clumsy and clumped up. So I really like the new one. Really like the new one. The boots. This is interesting because you could see Darth Vader in the show has a second like cape that comes around from his waist to the back of his legs. And of course they didn't attach it, but they did the like similar thing that they did with the vintage figures and split it and make it look like it sort of like meets together at the bottom. He does have the ridges in his leg, but the sides of the legs are covered up by this lower cape. His boots, the vintage one has the just line around the top of the boot right here. And this one has these little like studs on the top of the boot. So the boots are definitely more detailed. It's interesting that they can do a vintage style figure like this and they look and feel vintage, but yet the sculpts are superior in quality. There are a few vintage figures. In fact, there's a lot of vintage figures where the sculpting is actually really nice. The details are really nice. For instance, like I take this IG-88. If I were to compare this to the IG from the Mandalorian show, you would see that they're almost the same figure. And again, it's just like Obi-Wan's lightsaber and the vintage Jedi Luke, his lightsaber. It's the same length and pretty much an exact copy. And I'm glad that they did that. It gives it that extra vintage flair. See how he holds his sword? This is more like a gripping hand, so you can like force choke people with it. So I would put it in his right. Goes in easily. Stand him right next to the Inquisitor. He could fork choke Riva. You have failed me for the last time. I know where Obi-Wan Kenobi is. Why didn't you say so? Plot armor. Alright. So this has been a look at the Star Wars Retro Collection. Darth Vader from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. This has been a nice little set of figures. I hope that they continue to do these. The first 3 waves of figures have been great. I don't care what you think of the expanded universe stuff or the shows or the comics. I like toys. And these are great toys. They fit in perfectly with your vintage collection. And I know so many people who collect the vintage line, they get to that point where they feel like they're finished, like they're done. They got everything. It's pricey, but you had plenty of time to collect your collection. But now they're just adding to it. And I'm so glad that we're able to expand on a line that's really been dead for nearly 40 years at this point. It's just great. I hope they continue to do that. I'd like to see them do that with other lines. It would be nice to see them expand into some other vintage collections. We've seen them do that with the Masters of the Universe. I'm surprised that they haven't done that truly with things like Thundercats. I'd like to see some new vintage style Thundercats for Thundercat characters that weren't released. There were a few. And there's always the possibility of prototype figures that were never released that really deserve to get released at this point. And a lot of companies like Super 7 and NECA and some others have been jumping into that game, so to speak, of releasing these vintage prototype unreleased figures for the world. We've seen it with Super 7's Reaction line. They released the prototype Alien figures from the first Alien film. We've seen it again from Super 7 with their Masters of the Universe vintage styled line, where they released Eldor and Hero, which should have been released at the tail end of the line but were canceled. And then we're seeing it here in one form or fashion, not so much with prototypes, but they're at least expanding on a collection that already existed. And NECA just recently started doing it with the Dungeons and Dragons collection from the 80s. They've released a 4-pack of figures that were never released, and they're spot on with the prototypes of the original series that weren't released. So I'm always happy and excited to see that. But again, this has been a fun line. I'll continue to collect it no matter who they decide to release in it. I don't see any reason to buy the reissued figures. I have a lot of the vintage ones already, but they make great display pieces, and they're a lot cheaper in some regards than the actual original figures, so it wouldn't hurt to buy those if you had the chance. Again, this has been You Are Supreme Toys. I really appreciate your support and watching my videos.